Chevron Chairman and CEO Mike Wirth telling me that Biden's war on American energy undermines America's competitiveness, security, and relationships with allies. It's also slowing investment into America. I spoke with the Chairman and CEO of Chevron yesterday at the Milken Global Conference. Watch.
The policy discontinuities, they don't create the confidence for big investment. And so we've always dealt with policy change. Unfortunately, this country hasn't had consistent and steady energy policy for decades. In spite of that, you've seen an industry that has innovated, has found ways to unlock new supplies, and we've got a country that's blessed with abundant resources. If we had more balanced and pragmatic policy that appropriately reflected the importance of affordable energy for economic prosperity, of reliable energy for energy security, and protection of the environment, if you balance those three and had durable policies, I think you'd see even more investment in this country. We're already an energy superpower, but we could be even stronger.
What about Alaska? You've had to cut back in terms of production.
Yeah, we've seen more acreage taken off, made unavailable through an action recently in an area called the National Petroleum Reserve that was actually set up for resource development. We have a very small footprint in Alaska, so the impact on our company is not great. But I do think for the country, it's just one more signal that says, we're unlikely to have a lease sale in the Gulf of Mexico this year for the first time in decades. And so the policies to constrain investment in our energy economy over time can have a cumulative effect that undermines our competitiveness and our security.
Is it because of the barriers in terms of permitting?
Permitting, lease sales, availability to actually access acreage and resources, and then these mixed signals about whether or not we're serious about being a reliable supplier to our allies, LNG exports, which Europe, 2 years ago, there were real concerns about access to gas. The U.S. has become a big part of that solution for Europe. Banning new permits raises questions in the minds of other countries that could be entering into long-term supply contracts as to whether or not the U.S. will be a reliable supplier.
A moment ago, you mentioned data centers and what's happening in terms of that part of the agenda. We'll need more energy. Talk to us about the opportunities there.
Sure. So, the direction here in the U.S. is to try to electrify everything, right? Transportation, industrial processes. And now we see, on top of that, the growth in AI and the rapid development of these models in a way that consumes more and more compute power. And there's a need for more data centers. And we certainly talk to the big technology companies that are investing in these technologies and tools. And it's driving this huge demand for GPUs and everything associated with that. Data centers run 24 hours a day, and so they don't turn down when the sun goes down. They actually continue to run. We need to be able to supplement renewable power with reliable baseload power in a country that has been shutting down coal production, where it's so hard to permit and build nuclear. Geothermal technology may hold some promise, but it's very unproven at this point, certainly at that scale. You come right back to natural gas, which we're blessed with an abundance of, as a big part of that solution. And I think you're going to see AI and this growth in data centers drive strong demand growth for natural gas.
Well, it seems so backwards that, on the one hand, the agenda out of the United States is to use less fossil fuels and electrify everything. But at the end of the day, you need that energy to electrify.
We, as I said before, policies have not really been coherent or consistent. And I think in the broader sense of the strength of our economy, the security of our country, we do need to prioritize reliable and affordable energy as a part of that.
And the regulatory environment right now, do you expect it to be changing? Tell me about the regulations and fees that you have encountered as a result of that agenda.
Well, certainly as we head into the final year of the current Biden administration, there's been an acceleration of regulatory actions. And we've seen last month a huge number of these things come forward. I expect we'll see more of that this year. Don't know how the election turns out, but there's a lot going on, and it's accelerating right now.
And when you're saying that, in terms of the cost to Chevron, can you characterize what that regulatory buildup has meant?
it adds cost, and what it does is it slows things down. I mean, permitting is a great example, right? The Inflation Reduction Act was supposed to be followed by permitting reform, broad-based, fundamental permitting reform, because in this country, it's not just pipelines that we're talking about or development of natural resources, the grid, renewable power, the build out of more fiber infrastructure. It's difficult to build anything in this country with the current permitting process where people can stop just about anything. And so fundamental reform was intended to be part of that deal, and we really haven't seen that. And so that slows investment. It makes things more costly, and ultimately it can create reliability issues, whether it's power supply, oil and gas supply, and it's a shame in a country that's blessed with the resources we have that's what we're seeing.
My thanks to Chevron's Chairman and CEO, Mike Wirth. Let's get the panel's reaction. And Adam, when you say permitting is one of the issues, that has broad implications. And this is not just an economic story, but a national security one as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the real takeaway as I listened to your interview, which, by the way, I thought was outstanding, insightful. So if we were to allow more permitting, there would be more drilling. If there were more drilling, there would be more oil. If there were more oil, prices would go down. It's very logical. And if prices go down, you make it harder for Russia to finance its war. You make it harder for Iran to finance the making of atomic weapons. And equally important, you actually bring China to the table to the U.S. because suddenly now we have what they want, which is cheap energy. So if we were to simply allow more permitting, it would completely change the dynamics of how the U.S. interacts with both its allies and its enemies.
Yeah, and Lee, you have to believe that that's the reason that oil prices are up to 77 and change. That's off of the highs of the year, but nonetheless, we're going into the summer driving season, and we are expecting oil to stay elevated because of the geopolitical backdrop. 2 wars underway.
That's absolutely right. And I think this is going to have a huge impact on the election in November, because people are going to feel it in their pocketbooks, to continue to feel it in their pocketbooks. And you know, the Biden administration is trying to tell us that the economy has never been stronger. He's trying to say that inflation is coming down, but people still just don't feel it, especially when it comes to this. And we all know that, you know, energy security equals national security. When you look at what's going on all these different fronts, we really feel our vulnerability. And I think that, you know, that's something else that voters are going to look at as well.
Paul, your thoughts?
Energy seems to have a way to get it done, despite the fact that the left of the Democratic Party seems to be against anything related to fossil fuels, especially when it turns out that America has some of the largest deposits of liquid natural gas anywhere in the world, which was a tremendous boon nobody saw coming. So all of a sudden, LNG was not a bridge fuel. It was another thing that had to be stopped. And yet, despite that, we have numerous LNG ports. That's the key with LNG. You need the big ports to be able to export this stuff. We have a number of them going on down south. There's at least 3 or 4 that are near completion. And reportedly, you're into the teens on those being developed. Europe's doing the same. It's all an effort to isolate some of the people that Adam's talking about, Russia, et cetera. So I'm a little hopeful on this front, because despite the rhetoric, it still seems to manage to get done. And we're nowhere near the point where we can run all of our smartphones and our crypto mining and all the other things that we burn energy on these days on solar and some other pie in the sky energy source that doesn't exist yet.
Great points all around.